I love to see a team like Detroit come through and just make a name for themselves because Detroit needs something to root for.
For sure, for sure. I think they're a long way from that kind of middling team where they were starting Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin together and just kind of shooting for that 8 seed. I think that they've come a long way since then.
Let me put you on game.
Get into some basketball around the league. The first subject that I wanted to cover is going to be Mr. Cade Cunningham, who, to no surprise, I would think, has emerged as a leading candidate for Rookie of the Year. I think he had the largest workload for any uh, of the rookies. He, as a lead shot creator, as a guy who's going to have the ball in his hands for most of the possessions, I think he struggled like many young point guards struggle. But I think he's turned the corner. The game has slowed down for him. He's averaging 22, 7, and 7 over his last 10, and he's been a complete revelation since the All-Star break. I think he's really grasped the concept of controlling a game. He's been a really good two-way player as well. You know, watch him against the Bulls. Like, he competes really well defensively. He knows what he's doing. He's always in the right place. Uh, he uses his size at a legit 6'6" to really compete well against other guards on that end. And I really like him as the building block of a franchise because of his versatility and his ability to create for others. I think he's a guy that you can put anyone around him as long as it's not another lead guard, and he'll find a way to help them be successful with his passing ability. So I'm really excited for Detroit. Of course, they're a bad team right now. They've got Sadiq Bey, who's looking like a pretty good role player if he can up his percentages. Killian Hayes is not looking so great, but they've got Stewart and they've got a couple other young pieces that I really like. But I'm excited to see what happens with them in the draft because the odds are they're going to have one of the top picks. And they've got guys like Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, Jabari Smith Jr., and they've got a lot of guys. I think all three of those guys honestly fit with Cade because of his versatility. So I'm excited to see if they're able to snag one of those top 3 picks and what that means for their franchise. But yeah, Cade's been balling, and he's got an argument for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, no, certainly. And it's really interesting going back to what everybody said about him in the draft, about him being the leader of a franchise, about him being so versatile, about him being the type of player that can kind of come in and take over a franchise. Especially at his size, especially with his ability to just see the court, see the floor, it's translating directly. And the fact that he's this good, so early in his NBA career and has this much poise, even though his game definitely needs some, refining, especially in terms of like shooting, and just getting a feel for that. But you can see that he feels the game really well. You can see that in a couple years, with some, excellent marksmen placed around him and a strong, defensive anchor, that this team and the pieces that you can put around him is going to put Detroit back on the map. And it's really exciting to see a young player just come in and really get into their own. And he's definitely making a late season push for that Rookie of the Year, even though Evan Mobley is still firmly planted as number 1. Cade is definitely nipping at his heels, and it'll be interesting to see who can kind of make the most noise coming down the stretch. Offensively, his game definitely seems a little more refined than, the Evan Mobley counterpart, but obviously Mobley just does everything he does on the defensive end and is literally impacting winning for a Cavs franchise that he's helped to really turn around. And then also just guys coming in who are playing hungry, like a Sadiq Bey, like Marvin Bagley, who's come alive and seems to be playing really well. Recently, I think he put up 25 on 35 minutes, and him actually getting minutes, he's putting together some really quality games. So I love to see a team like Detroit come through, in the center of the country and just make a name for themselves because Detroit needs something to root for.
For sure, for sure. I think they're a long way from that kind of middling team where they were starting Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin together. and just kind of shooting for that 8 seed. I think that they've come a long way since then. You know,
Yeah.
of course, Cade still has to grow offensively. His turnovers are still really high, but I think we see that a lot with really young point guards as they kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work at the NBA level. Because a lot of times those passes that would get through in college, like you have guys that are a lot longer, more athletic, faster, that can come through and pick those off, and they're smarter as well. So you have to kind of negotiate where your place is on the floor. But I think he's really come along a lot faster than I thought he would. And he's just the perfect starting piece for a franchise. Not that he's going to be anywhere near as good as LeBron, but in the LeBron Luka way, where you have a guy that you can put in that spot and you can put whatever pieces you want around him, as long as they're willing to play a lesser role as far as not having the ball as much and let Cade do his thing. I think he's got a really bright future in that regard. But
Yeah.
let's
And I
talk
just,
about.
oh no, I
Go
was
ahead.
just gonna say I love his craftiness because he can really get to any spot that he wants to on the floor. And he has the kind of game, even though he's not the fastest, he understands angles and he is able to, penetrate into the paint, kick out to the open shooter, and just basically kind of take over a game if he wants to. And so it'll be interesting to see him develop that skill with, mid-range floaters, jump shots, kickouts, etc. Like he has literally all the tools to be able to do that, similar to like a Ben Simmons years ago. But unlike Simmons, I think he has more upside as far as his shooting potential. But yeah.
I mean, he's willing to shoot, so that's a start. Um, yeah. But I think I guess the last thing on Cade, the biggest thing that I like about his game, you saw it at Oklahoma State, is that he has that kind of old school point guard mentality where he knows that he'll spend most of the game setting guys up and getting guys confident. But when it's time to take over offensively at the, when the game is in the balance, that's where he kind of turns it on and he starts scoring. He starts finishing
Yeah.
around the rim. He starts getting to his spots, but he knows that he knows kind of how to manipulate the flow of a game. So I'm intrigued to see where he goes as far as advancing in that aspect.